City of Forest Park Council public hearing, October 16, 2017. We have two public hearings, the first of which is to obtain citizen views on housing and community development needs. And I'm thinking that's you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Chris Anderson. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Forest Park. As you mentioned in the title, this is one of two public hearings that the council will hold for our CDBG application. And CDBG applications go through Hamilton County. It's a federal program that goes through. We apply to Hamilton County, and they distribute a pot of money among the communities based upon specific project requests. So purpose tonight is to, if there are any ideas or needs for the community in the community development area, to bring them up. And also attending the meeting tonight, and I'll turn it over to him unless there are any questions, is Boubacar Diallo from Hamilton County. He is the administrator who is assigned to Forest Park, and we've worked with him on our home improvement program and some other CDBG funded projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. Good evening. As Chris said, I'm Boubacar Diallo. I work with Hamilton County Community Development. And basically, I'm just going to try to give an overview of the program and then hopefully answer any questions that you may have. So the purpose, one of the things we have to do is hold two public hearings. A first public hearing is generally to just give an overview of what the program is, and then and get some input from the community. And then the second public hearing is where basically the community comes out and says, you know, this is the application that we're going to put forth and give to the county.
What was the first one, please, for the public hearing?
The first public hearing is basically to give a general overview of the program and get some feedback from the community. Yeah, that way you can solicit ideas from the communities about what to do with the funding. So what typically happens is communities will request money, and it's in a 3-year cycle. So what this is for 2018, 2019, and 2020 funds. What we as Hamilton County, we receive roughly about $3 million every year for the Community Development Block Grant. And what we do with that money in general is half of it we will use for community-wide projects, and then the other half we will give specifically to the different communities. And how it works is through a formula. So HUD has a formula that they utilize, and it's based on a number of different things. The population of the community, the housing stock, number of low-income individuals in the community, elderly citizens in the community, and they use that formula to determine how much they're going to give to each provider. So in our case, Hamilton County. And so what we do then is we look at the different communities that participate. And in our case, there are 48 communities in Hamilton County, but only 38 participate in the Community Development Block Grant Fund.
You said 48?
Correct.
And how many participate?
38.
Thank you.
And so basically each community brings in a certain amount of money. And in the case of Forest Park, I want to say roughly your allocation breaks down to about $73,000 every year. So what we do is we look at those $73,000 over 3 years. That's roughly $219,000, and we say we're going to take half of that money. If you request it, we will give it to you to implement projects that are eligible. So what is eligible? the program, there are three main categories. So it has to meet a national objective, and there are three national objectives. One is to eliminate slum and blight. The other is to benefit low-income individuals. And one that is not used frequently is to address an immediate danger or need in the community.
What is the number that is used for low-income individuals?
It is 80% of the adjusted median income.
Of the adjusted yearly income?
Adjusted median income.
I'm sorry,
Adjusted median income.
median income. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And roughly, so this year, for a family of four, that breaks down a little under $60,000. And then a family of one, it's about $42,000, a little under $42,000.
So 4 would be 60,000 and 1 would be how much?
A little under 42,000.
Okay, thank you.
So to give you an idea of what can be funded with the money, you can use the money for improvements to public facilities such as parks and ball fields. And again, this has to be in a low to moderate income area. You can make ADA improvements to public-owned facilities such as parks, senior centers, city hall. Improvement to senior centers, anything to do with elderly individuals is typically eligible. And the same goes with anything that has to do with
We could do a community building.
accessibility is typically eligible. It can be used for land and building acquisition, demolition of outdated, blighted, and unsafe buildings. You can use it for business district plans and improvements, improvements to public infrastructure in low to moderate income areas. What it cannot be used for is improvements to private infrastructure, acquisitions or improvement to government-owned buildings.
Can you say those again? It can't be used
It
on-
cannot be used for improvements to private infrastructure or the acquisition or improvement to government buildings, with the exception of ADA, something to do with ADA, accessibility.
With Americans with Disability Act?
Correct. It cannot be used for acquisition or improvements to cultural or sports centers, acquisition or improvement to airports or hospitals, maintenance or repair facilities or infrastructure. And what I'm sure you probably already know, but so Forest Park, I believe in the last cycle, part of it was used for street rehabilitation, park improvements, and I believe a home repair program. But various communities have used it for different things, but in general,
What kind of home repair things?
generally it's for exterior repairs, and again, it would be to help
Would
low-income
that be like a
individuals.
roof?
It could be a roof, it could be windows, a door. We've had one instance where someone removed a tree because it was dangerous and about to fall on their house.
So you can do that if there are dangerous trees to fall on houses and tear up things?
Yes,
Like we have a deck, and if it falls, it'll tear a whole back of our house?
that is,
So you could do it for that? And what would
Yes,
that be
it-
under?
assuming you're low income,
Yes.
yep. I can go through the list of some of the other communities, what they've done, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? Is this what we have used in the past to purchase foreclosed homes and tear them down as blight?
It's not the same program. This is our regular CDBG every 3 years. That was a national or neighborhood stabilization program.
This is what, Chris?
That, what Councilor Herbie was referring to was a neighborhood stabilization program, which was a kind of a one-time thing.
And what was that for?
We used it to do demolition and rehabilitation of foreclosed homes.
Like the ones that foreclosed around here, and there's no owner to pick?
There were a couple homes that were vacant and in a state of abandonment.
And when did that happen?
Approximately 2011 to 2013.
That's what I thought. thank you.
So those were the NSP funds, Neighborhood Stabilization Program. The Community Development Program, I mean, you can do this, you can do that as well. So that is an option. Some communities use their money for that. Some use it for streetscape, road improvements.
Now, we've done streetscape here, haven't we? Ray, over on Northland Boulevard?
Not from this.
Oh, okay.
It's been used to demolish a car dealership, a youth dental program, a volunteer park, and give you an idea of some of the community-wide projects. One of them that we fund is people working cooperatively. So that's part of the half of the money that we give to.
And what do they do?
They will do generally home repair and accessibility for
And
homeowners.
how do they determine that?
You would call, an individual would call and say, I have a need. They qualify you, make sure you're
Do
in.
you have a number for that?
I can get you one,
Okay.
yeah. And
I gave you my card, just leave that to me on my home line, please.
I will do that.
We do have, our environmental awareness program is working with people working cooperatively.
Okay.
We have a partnership with them
Great,
for home repairs.
great.
Just a few, though.
Well, for low income, for people who qualify.
Yeah, so they do home repair and also accessibility for people that call.
Is that like some of the people that need it for wheelchairs and
A
things?
ramp, yep, someone who
Ramp,
may need a ramp or to widen a door or something of that
It's
nature.
interesting because that's kind of my field of study, so
Yeah.
that's good to know to let people know.
Yep. So that's, the general overview of the program. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions from members of council? Any questions from the audience? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Anderson? Anything else on
Sure.
anything else on this particular public hearing? Hearing nothing on this one. Thank you. We are now actually past time for the beginning of the second public hearing. Again, Mr. Anderson.
The purpose of this hearing is for proposed changes to our ordinance regarding peddlers, solicitors, and canvassers. Currently, this ordinance is in a moratorium of enforcement while we study and propose changes. We do have a copy of the proposed changes that was in your council packet.
What does it look like?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
What does it look like?
Should have red, stuff with, text with red crossed out and then blue added.
What are you talking about, 24?
Ordinance
Yes,
24, 2017, yes. It's ordinance 24,
24-2017.
right. I think the way to sum this up is that we have greatly simplified the process for obtaining a permit to solicit within the city of Forest Park for commercial purposes. We'd had this in there before, but certainly I think it's more straightforward. We have taken door-to-door solicitation, divided into the commercial solicitation, and then non-commercial, which would be for nonprofit, charitable, political
Door-to-door is what?
solicitation.
And you said there are two kinds.
Right, commercial and non-commercial.
Thank you.
So a person that is engaged in commercial solicitation would need to obtain a permit from the city. The permit application requirements are that they provide information as to their identity, meaning their name, permanent address, date of birth, enough information so that a background check can be performed. And the reason for that
They
is,
don't have to have a background check?
I'm sorry,
They don't have to have a background check?
you're providing the information so that a background check can be done.
The name, address, and date of birth?
Right, it's there in the written material. A background check gets performed if there are a criminal record of certain kinds of felony and misdemeanor crimes, including crimes of theft and deception, domestic violence, felony drug offenses. Those are disqualifying.
And what type of drug offenses?
Felony,
Drug offenses, what type?
they're felony drug offenses. That's a
Oh, okay,
level
so
of
like that,
charge.
Thanks.
The, and the application may be denied because of that. At that point, the person does have a right to appeal, and I'll get to that a little bit later. An application is then issued. The solicitor is required to keep the permit with them, and we discussed this among our staff. It doesn't say in the ordinance one way or another what the form of that permit is, but the city could issue that as a badge type.
What about the people that are coming out today, and they're like looking at the Duke Energy kinds of things that are differently, and they knock on your door, and they show you their picture, but they don't have a solicitation permit? I've been sending them to the police department, but they're not coming. And then they get in cars and take off.
Well, they shouldn't be soliciting without a permit. Right now, none of that, all of that is suspended. So it won't be until we adopt a new ordinance that there would be any enforcement of what you've been sending them to the police department for.
And how long will that take to adopt a new ordinance?
Yeah, first reading tonight. As an ordinance, you have to read twice, so.
Okay, first readings tonight, and then it's read, then we would vote the next time. Next council meeting, okay, thank you.
So they would need to keep the permit with them and produce it along with photo ID if requested by someone while they're doing solicitation. There is a revocation, a revoking of the permit procedure in the case where someone violates a portion of the chapter, or if they were found to have falsified their application, or if for some reason they were convicted of a crime that would have disqualified them from obtaining a permit to begin with, the permit can then be revoked.
So when would be the next?
We discussed this at the last work session. There is and there needs to be an appeals procedure. We already have one. The board that hears the most appeals as a matter of practice is the Planning Commission. They hear both zoning and building appeals. This is not so far off from the kinds of appeals that they do hear, that just looking at our boards and commissions and without wanting to create a new commission, it did appear to be the one with the best fit. Their appeals procedure, that's the reference, is actually in the zoning portion of the municipal code. So it refers to those procedures in those two sections. But basically, someone who alleges an error can file the appeal. The Planning Commission holds the hearing where the person can present their evidence. And then the Planning Commission rules on that by a vote. Okay, I've been talking about commercial solicitors up through now, but there are also non-commercial solicitors and people that are just out talking to people or dropping off literature. People like Jehovah's Witnesses, the political candidates, Ohio Citizen Action is another group that does this kind of thing, although they also solicit money. But there would fall under the non-commercial solicitation.
Who's that, Ohio?
It was just an example.
Like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, things like that?
I'll get to that. But yes, they're
And what's that one called?
non-commercial solicitation.
Okay.
They don't have to do the permit part of it. All they have to do is abide by the next two sections, which the first of these is that somebody can post a no solicitation sign by their door. And by ordinance, they're required to abide by that and not ring the doorbell or knock on the door. The second is the hours of the day where solicitation is permitted. And right up until now, we've been permitting from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. That's unchanged in this new draft. And that's pretty much it for how this operates.
How will that be changed to what?
It isn't changed.
But it will be?
The hours are not changed.
That's going to be 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.,
Correct.
even with daylight savings time and things changing for families?
Correct. So as you can see by looking at the draft, there's a lot that struck out, and we tried to keep the additions as simple and straightforward as possible, so that this was an easy to understand and easy to administer ordinance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
Yes, I have one. Okay, so let's say ABC Vacuum Corporation wants to commercially solicit within Forest Park. Do they apply as a corporation for a permit for their corporation, or do they have to apply for a permit for each one of the actual people that they're going to allow to canvass door to door?
For each person.
Okay.
Any other questions from council?
Oh, Mayor, I had one more thing. The Girl Scouts were brought up. This is something that also was added, was the permit requirement is for persons 18 years and older. So just to avoid any confusion about the Girl Scouts, they would be exempt under that as well.
Anything else from council? Anything from the public? Anybody from the public have a question or comment? Hearing none. The second work session